Related. Energy forms a key component of geopolitics. With me is former ambassador to Pakistan, Ambassador G. Parthasarathy. Sir, welcome to Doordarshan News. So, my first question is, sir, how important or how interrelated is energy and geopolitics?
Well, historically, from the beginning of the 20th century, most politics of the world have been dominated on how developed countries, whether it is Britain or the America, could get access to oil. Even the Second World War, the main aim of the Germans was to get access to Middle East oil. So energy has since then been a question of rivalry. When the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, the Americans created the Central Command to be able to fight them if they should come into the oil-bearing areas. For India, it is of crucial importance because we have to grow at 7 to 8% to give a better life to our people. You cannot grow that fast without reliable supplies of energy at reasonable prices.
My second question is, there's a term in global geopolitics, the great game around the Caspian Sea. They say in Caspian Sea there's huge amount of oil resources. Is the great game coming to an end since the discovery of shale gas in America? Oil prices are at a new low.
No, I think the rivalry now for oil resources and gas resources in Central Asia is largely between China and Russia. Russia has surplus oil and gas, but yet historically from the days of the Soviet Union, all these areas, Caspian, Central Asia, their pipelines used to be through Russia. China is building its own pipelines. China is negotiating with Russia. So Russia will look to supply these to Japan, to Korea, so that it is not dependent on China. So the new game is really Central Asia, Caspian, yes.
So it said there's a shale gas revolution happening in America. What will be the impact of this shale gas revolution? And if America becomes energy independent from rest of the world, will its intervention in the Middle East is going to come to a halt or will it decrease?
You see, American interests will continue to be global, but their dependence on Middle East oil is going to become zero. So they will wield influence, and the influence of Saudi Arabia on the US and its allies is going to will wane. So certainly, given their support from Israel, for Israel, I think that will continue, and they're going to be there.
So my other question is on India and Pakistan. Pakistan is energy deficient in a sense. There have been talked about 500 megawatts of energy from India, and can we use this energy as energy diplomacy, a new diplomacy from cricket diplomacy to energy diplomacy?
Well, let me put it this way. If the Pakistanis realize that their street lights in Lahore and their houses in Lahore are being lighted by electricity from India, it does change their perception and approach towards India. I mean, after all, if a person finds that his hospitals, his houses all being lit from India, it's good. But Pakistan will try its best to become self-reliant within the next 5 to 10 years.
So Russia has been using energy as a source of diplomacy, the energy diplomacy, Russia's energy diplomacy, Gazprom. Can India emulate the same thing with its neighbors?
No, for the simple reason that we are energy deficient and we don't have the resources to export. But people seem to forget one thing. Our largest single export, $44 billion, are finished petroleum products from our refineries. So I think what we need to do is build up refinery capacity so that markets in our neighborhood get their finished petroleum products, oil, diesel, everything from India. And I think we're doing that.
So my last question is, there's a great game happening between India and China across the world for resources, oil, whether it's mineral, especially in Africa. But it's been seen that Indian companies, state-owned Indian companies, are not that active when it comes to the Chinese company like Sinopec, who actually most of the times when I read the newspaper reports, Sinopec tends to checkmate the Indian companies. I don't want to name Indian companies.
Well, I don't. The fact of the matter is, the Chinese companies have far more resources than we have. Don't forget, China's economy is 4 times our size. Don't forget that the surplus capacities which their companies, their public undertakings have is enormous, bank credit. The other thing is, I am rather careful in exploiting other people's resources. Well, I think what China is doing in Africa, rushing in to exploit their resources, is already started to get it a bad name. And it's not going to be productive for them in the